Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the December meeting of the District 5 Advisory Board meeting. I am Councilmember Brian Fry. Before we get too further along, I'd like to introduce Councilmember-elect JB Johnston in the back of the room there. He will get sworn in on January 8th. So we have one more meeting. That'll be January 3rd. And then JB will take the reins on the 9th. So looking forward to it. Thank you for serving, sir.
Can we get some more TVs in here?
Speaking of serving, because this is an advisory board meeting, I do not chair the meeting. I always turn it over to a member of the advisory board. So tonight, Lamont Anderson is going to be taking the reins. So take it away, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for attending this evening's meeting of the District 5 Advisory Board. Our first order of business, we call this order for the approval of the agenda for tonight, December 4th, 2023. Is there a motion for approval on the agenda? So moved. Is there a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Second order of business will be for the approval of the amendment of our minutes from November 6th, 2023. Is there a motion for approval? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Both measures will pass unanimously. We'll head to our public agenda. There are no scheduled items at this time. If there is anyone in the audience who did not previously sign up to speak, but you would like to speak on an item that is currently not on the agenda, please step up front and state your name and address for the record, if you would.
Hi there, my name is Randy Timish. I live at 242 North Woodchuck Street. That's close to the Target off of 2nd Street. I came here today to talk about the tree policy. I guess I missed out. I wasn't here last month. But I just wanted to say that I'm here as a facilitator of 316 United. We send out a newsletter because we want people in our community to know more about environmental concerns. One of the things that we have focused on is the tree policy, as well as the problem with 9th and Road with the pollution. Our group, along with ICT Trees and ICT Tree Huggers, have talked to the city people and the park board in regards to our feelings about the tree policy. And I'm pleased to say that they have been very helpful and they've listened to us. And we totally support the passing of that tree policy. Except there's one thing. We all agree there's not enough trees. We would like to see more trees. This policy is only for public spaces and not the removal of dead trees. And that's a whole nother subject, is removal of dead trees. We will continue to support the tree policy. We believe it's beginning. There's a lot more that could be done. I appreciate the time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a real point of order. We have not had the tree policy come before the council yet for approval.
Okay.
I believe it's either the 12th or the 19th. Tim, you know? 19th. Okay. So there'll still be an opportunity for public comment at that meeting as well for the council to review and possibly adopt on that.
I just want to say all three of our groups participated in the tree planting at Alice Wall. And I think I saw you there, and it was a lovely time. We got like 400 trees planted in just 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so that was a great event. It was very enjoyable.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who would wish to share anything before we proceed? Very good. Moving along, we will go to item number 3, updates, issues, and reports. Turn it over to Councilman Fry.
Okay, thank you, Lamont. First up, we had a groundbreaking this month at the Northwest Y, just a couple of blocks over here to the west. That was earlier in November. They're putting in multiple turf fields, AstroTurf fields, pickleball courts. It's on the south side of 121st Street. I think they plan to hopefully have it done by next summer. So pretty aggressive, pretty nice. It's definitely needed out here. More turf fields for youth sports. So that was a good project. The city approved the land purchase for the Patrol West Police Substation at 13th and Country Acres, which is the far northeast corner of the Northwest High School property, just north of the softball field. The project should go out for a design bid, hopefully, maybe even this year, not certainly the first quarter of next year. Modeling it somewhat like the Patrol East that's under construction right now at the former Southeast high school site. So that project is funded by federal ARPA dollars, about a $10 million project. The land purchase was a little over $400,000. The best thing about that purchase was it did not take any taxable property off of the tax rolls. Since we're purchasing land from the school district, which is not taxed, we were able to not lose out on any tax revenue, like taking commercial property, purchasing, so, or park property. So it's about a 5-acre project. Last week, we opened the Rutgers City Winter Shelter. This is a 24 by 7 emergency winter shelter. It's at the site of the old Fundamental Learning Center at 2110 East 21st Street. It's the old Heart Spring campus right there, just east of the canal route. This is in partnership with Humankind. City contributed $200,000 to the project. The county contributed $200,000, and then they're out searching for other partners and fundraising efforts for it. Again, this facility is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which we have not had. It'll be up to 200 beds, 3 meals a day. There are provider services that operate there so that when people are there for the shelter, they can get connected for whether it's a driver's license or work training or permanent housing or temporary housing. There will be multiple service providers there. The contract for this facility is through the end of March. We are still actively searching for a site for our MAC, which is our multi-agency center that will house a temporary non-congregate shelter like this space and low income housing, temporary housing, as well as provider navigation services. So that is an RFP we have on the street right now. We've engaged with the company to help us evaluate proposals. Don't know if that would be accomplished by next winter, but that's certainly the goal. It depends on if we end up finding a new space or having to renovate or build from the ground up. So at least for this winter season, we have a 200 bed shelter. And that, I think they were expecting Friday night 140. I don't know if that's what they got up to. JB, would you happen to know? Okay. I know they were expecting maybe 140, but capacity is 200. Humankind still also this is for single men and single women, and they're housed in separate parts of the facility. For families or couples, Humankind has another shelter entirely. This particular location is on the bus route. It's completely secure. There's 24-hour security there and service providers, like I mentioned. Big news on the council agenda for tomorrow is we have been negotiating with the FOP for retention and recruitment of officers. And it is scheduled. It's been scheduled once before, but it's now been reworked to provide a $5,000 bonus for all law enforcement officers from lieutenant on down. Again, this is to help with the shortage we have right now. We're over 100 officers short, meaning we have vacant open positions, and we have 130, 140 that are eligible for retirement. And so, and this is not unusual. We see this across the country. It's a very challenging profession. It's difficult to get people who want to serve in this capacity. And so trying to keep them as long as we can while we train up and recruit more. The $5,000 bonus was put in play to help with that. We also negotiated early for the current contract. So as part of tomorrow's agenda item is a raise in the 2024 year up to 13 point something percent. And then a clothing allowance increase. But also part of this, if you remember during the texting scandal a couple of years ago, we hired a company called Jensen Hughes to come in and evaluate the department and policies and procedures. Part of those recommendations we've been working on, not all of them have been implemented yet, but one of the key ones is part of this FOP bonus that we're awarding tomorrow to get that piece early. That is something the community has been asking for as well. So we think it's a good win-win for everyone. Yes, an officer could accept the bonus and then retire. That's part of the risk. But we felt like we had to do something, good faith, goodwill, to show that we understand the challenges that they've had the last couple of years and the desire to keep officers as long as we can, because the last thing you want to do is hire a bunch of young, inexperienced officers and put them on the streets without experienced officers to provide supervisory training while they're in that working unit. So that's the other big reason. Anyone who's ever been on a ride along, these officers start their shift and it's 10 hours and it's never ending. There is no rest for them. And so the morale and the physical and mental exhaustion has been something we wanted to address. And so I'm sure there's still some comments tomorrow on it, from a lot of folks, but I believe it's the right thing to do at this point in time while we continue to recruit new officers. So happy to answer any questions anyone may have or anything else that you may have heard, but that's just kind of what's been happening right now. And don't forget, we have our breakfast Saturday morning, 9:30 at the water facility at the community room. So breakfast to be provided. And we have two special guests, Councilmember-elect J.B. Johnston and our Director of Airports, Jesse Rowan. So a lot of great things happening at the airport. So we thought it'd be a good time to have you come out and share. Anyone have any questions or concerns in their neighborhoods? All right, well, I'm bell ringing tomorrow night and Saturday, so look on Facebook and come see me. Thank you.
What type of breakfast is going to be served?
The guy that's in shape is asking what's the breakfast like. It'll be traditional. It's gonna be eggs and bacon, some biscuits.
I'll be there early.
Thank you.
We will roll into our staff reports, and with that will bring us to the community police report with Officer Kim Ray.
Hello, everybody. I am Officer Lori Kimmery. I am the community policing officer for 19 Beat, which is basically the area you're in now, and also for 11 Beat, which is just a little bit to the east of here. So I have a pretty large area. So everything north of 17th from 119th to Hamilton. So large area. I know today's, I was talking to Teresa earlier this month, and she said that the biggest concern right now is the statistics are really high for crime increase in the city of Wichita. So I just got hot off the press, the west side crime statistics and its comparison from year to year. So I thought I'd share some of those with you to ease a little bit of your concern. Most of our statistics are down out west. I can't speak for the whole city, but out west they are pretty down. Our homicides were up by 3, but 2 of those were justified homicides. So like self-defense, stuff like that. Our sexual assault cases are down by 21%. Robbery cases are down 22%. Our aggravated assaults, which are like firearm cases, fire displayed, criminal possession or firearm discharge, stuff like that, those are down by 6%. Burglaries are up a little bit by 16%, but most of those are non-residential. Larcenies, those are like vehicle break-ins, anything that's stolen out of your front yard. Those aren't considered robberies. Those are basically thefts from places without force. Those were up by 6%, and most of those were, let's see, shoplifting cases. Let's see, largely from autos, those were down 10%, which I know we've had a lot of that in the news lately, but most of those people are leaving their cars unlocked and people are just going through parking lots and checking handles. If they get lucky, they take whatever's inside. Auto thefts are down 4%. And like I said, this is comparison from 2022 to 2023, the same exact date this year, time of year. A little bit of your domestic violence cases are up by 5%, but it's just very minor stuff. And then everything else is down, even your vandalisms, stuff like that, everything's down on the west side of town. So hopefully that eases a little bit of your concern with the number of officers that we're short. We're still out there and you know, tackling all the major crimes and stuff like that. So west side is still considerably very safe. So I wanted to bring up, because I know some people on the board are interested in this, but our next Second Chance Thursday is January 18th, and we're gonna have it at 2601 North Arkansas. We're gonna try to hit a lot of the Spanish speaking community up there. We're gonna try to do some radio announcements and stuff and flyers in Spanish. So hopefully we can get some more people to come in and get their licenses. So that's basically what I had to report. So is there any questions about anything? Yes, sir.
What might be an example of a minor domestic violence occurrence, or what qualifies as like?
So any domestic violence cases, anybody that's both adults and there is a physical assault. So it could be like a punch, a slap, anything that leaves visible marks. Your felony cases are gonna result in broken bones, stitches, something of a higher nature. But your simple assault, battery is gonna be, you know, just a husband and wife, or brother and sister that live together, even two roommates that live together, that could be considered domestic violence. So anybody who lives together, that's an important.
So the address is 2601 North Arkansas.
It's gonna be the Evergreen. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have our Public Library report, outstanding Wesleyan Library Manager, Ms. Tracy Parker.
You know what this is, and some of you met the ball.
You can say that's right.
So my name is Tracy Partridge. I'm the manager of the Westlake Branch Library, and the thing that I wanted to thank you so much. The first thing I wanted to let you know is that there are several days in December where all Wichita Public Library locations will be closed. December 24th and 25th, all library locations will be closed, and December 31st and January 1st, all library locations will be closed. I like to say that even when we're closed, we are actually open and available, because we have drop boxes where you can actually return things. We have an assortment of digital resources, over 38,000 ebooks and e-audiobooks, a streaming movie service called Canopy, and a whole bunch of databases. So even when you, like the library is closed, you still have access to materials if you have access to technology. That was the first thing that I wanted to mention. The second thing is with the Westlake Branch Library's expansion and remodel, they did actually approve a contractor. Key Construction is actually going to be the contractor on the Westlake Branch. We don't have a definitive date on groundbreaking, but they have done all of the preliminary work. The next thing that I wanted to mention is I've mentioned a couple times that we were doing a card design contest, and we are actually ready to vote on who is actually going to win. And that was actually for 3 age categories. We had a children's age category, a teen age category, and then an adult one. So voting will start actually Monday, December 11th and close on Sunday, December 31st. And basically you will have the opportunity to voice your opinion on which is the best kids card, which is the best teen card, and which is the best adult card. Then what will happen is in February, we will start making those available for people when they get library cards to choose a fancy design that's been designed by a Wichita artist. So we would love to have your opinions, and you can start giving them to us starting on December 11th. Another thing that I wanted to mention is we have a lot of events at the Wichita Public Library. If you're looking for things to do with your children during the holiday break, please be sure to go to wichitalibrary.org and look at our event schedule. We have make and take crafts, we have video game activities, we have cocoa and painting, and lots of different things. And all of our activities are free. We do not charge for activities. I mentioned in November that the Wichita Public Library now has a book bus. The purpose of the book bus is actually to go out to areas in the community that don't have a library presence, but we want to bring the library to them. So the book bus is finally hitting the road, and the first stop is Tuesday, December 5th, 10 a.m. to noon at Plainview Park, and then 3 to 5 p.m. at Boston Park. But there's tons of actually stops throughout December, and you can actually, again, go to our website, just do a search for book bus, and it will come up on the event schedule. And then the final thing is, in November, I gave you a challenge. It is something called a break-in bag. And basically you had 3 questions to solve, which gave you the combination to the lock that was on all those bags. And then if you actually opened the bag, you got to keep all of the contents, which candy, because who doesn't love candy? And then also we had bookmarks in there by a local artist named Lori Holbert. She actually donated them to the Westlink branch. Basically, she does paintings, and then she cuts them up and makes them into bookmarks. And the other thing is, there were little owl keychains, because our mascot is actually an owl. And those were actually made on our 3D printer at the library. And the 3D printer is something that you can actually learn how to do. You just have to take a couple classes, do one supervised 3D printing job, and then you can have access to that. Doesn't cost to use it except for the materials from the 3D printing job. So that was to introduce you to that. And now the people who actually did it get prizes. Okay. So you get one. No, you get 2. Okay.
Well, I understand somebody on this board really, really likes owls. Who? Thank you.
I want you. Then get the bingo. So when I was committed to make sure that this.
So it's empty. It is empty. You did a fabulous job. Okay. And then we have. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yes, Darwin.
Okay. In your bag, there are fancy sunglasses and blazers with the Public Library on it. This is what all the cool people wear, Trevor. Yes, and then candy. Okay, does anybody have any questions? I'm so sorry, I got excited. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, I had one more thing. This is for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. Next, we will have a report from the Wichita Fire Department with Battalion Chief. On that, John. Yes, sir.
Never want to follow the one who's giving out gifts. Sorry, guys, nothing for you. I'm Chief John Eck. I manage the stations in your district. So I have a brief report for you today. Couple things we have going on is the blood drive is starting. And that's the PD and the firefighters have a challenge. And if you go get blood, come on here for the fire department side. I think we've won like 4 years in a row, so we'd like to keep that might not be accurate. Also, we have a few other exciting things going on. We have ordered 2 new fire engines and a ladder truck. And just through everything with COVID and everything, it's been really, really hard to get trucks, and it's starting to push on us a little bit. And so we do have some guys up in Wisconsin putting final inspection on a couple on those 3 machines. Hopefully they'll be here sometime in January or February. Also, we have some new recruits coming out in January that will help us also. We have had some similar turnover problems to PD, not near as bad, and we seem to have those corrected. We also have some new stations on the horizon that will possibly be in northwest or southwest Wichita. Still working on that. And the only significant event we had in your area was on 3400 block of Sunny Lane, which is close to Hoover and 29th. And the only reason I mentioned it, it was a detached garage fire. And for a safety issue, you know, there's always a lot of flammable stuff in your garage, and it's just make sure you keep ignition sources away, especially this time of year. We have a lot of garage fires, we have warming fires, we have floor furnace fires, we have chimney fires. So make sure that stuff is all in order, especially this time of year. That, I think, is all I have for you. Yes.
Chief, was that near the salvage yard?
It's up that way, yeah, and I wasn't working that day, but there, I think there's a little residential area in there, so. And it said a detached garage that wasn't attached to the house. I think there was a pretty significant amount of damage, so I think it's a 40,000.
I remember there was a tire fire there a couple of years ago, and that salvage it burned for like 3 days.
Yes, I was at that one. It was old cars, and they had them stacked, you know, 15 high. And there was just no access. We couldn't get to them. It was burned. I mean, it was acres of cars burning. It was crazy. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Sir. Next up, we'll have our Park and Recreation Department report. I know who Reggie is, Reggie's not here, so.
I'm definitely not Reggie. Will do my best. I'm Barbara McGuire. I'm the program specialist for Wichita Park and Recreation. So I don't have any goodies either. I feel kind of like I should have brought some, but oh well. So we've got a lot of programs still going on. We go all year long. We just don't stop. So we've got a lot of holiday programs that are happening now. We've had a couple of toddler and youth classes that just finished up a couple days ago. We've got cookie decorating, we've got Grinch cookies and Christmas story cookies, and that's ages 14 plus. We like to do as many parent-child programs as possible, so we've got some openings of those. We have our hot cocoa bomb class, again, that's for ages 14 plus. That's a lot of fun. You get to make the hot cocoa bombs and then get to drink them later and give them out as gifts, whatever you prefer. Our edible wreath arrangement class too, so obviously we're into cooking during the holidays, I guess. We've got a holiday bath and body class too, and again, those are so you can make gifts for people, or again, if you want to use them for yourself, that's fine too. So like bath bombs and some things like that. Then we get into some of our other socials. We've got our holiday tennis social. So just tennis players, people who are interested in tennis, who maybe want to meet some people out at the tennis center, come out, enjoy some good food, some music, get some playing time in, and get a chance to meet some people that they may not normally get to meet or get to talk to very often. Same thing with our New Year's Eve pickleball party. We did it last year. It was a huge success. And so I think it runs from like 8 a.m. until 2 a.m. So same type of thing, lots of food, lots of fun, ending up with a lot of playing time on the court and getting a chance to meet some people. And then we also have the holiday open house at Auburn Hills Golf Course. Now that one's going to be for whoever. There's no admission charge or anything like that. And that's going to be really exciting. So if you get a chance, go out to Auburn Hills. That is on December 16th, because they have a lot of giveaways and prizes, and they have a lot of sales in the gift shop. So if you're needing some new golf equipment or golf shirts or things like that, that's a good place to go. Santa will be there so you can get your picture taken. And again, it's just a good time to go and meet the pros, meet Jesse, the director there. So it's a good time. We've got our kids programs that are coming up too, because once the kids are out of school, obviously they need a place to go. So we've got our Kids Connection, which is kind of like our licensed daycare program. And again, when they do that, it's during that winter break time from school. They can pick and choose, parents can pick and choose which days. So you don't have to go like the whole entire week. So parents get to choose. We have our specialty camps, and those are more of our themed programs. And those are really exciting because they're really immersed in that particular theme. So our junior chef boot camp, which is always one of our biggest ones, they usually have about 30 kids sign up for. Our Lego Mania, Messy Science, Mystery Theater, and Nerf Wars. So a lot of fun, but also some educational stuff that's thrown in there too. And then we have our Watson's Christmas Express that's going on right now. And if you're not familiar with it, it runs all during the month of December. Again, talk about, parent-child, intergenerational, grandparent type of an event. It's $18, and when you sign up, you come in, you get to do some craft projects, the reading of the Polar Express, you ride the train up to the North Pole, you get a chance to see Santa and sit on Santa's lap, and then you get s'mores and unlimited s'mores, I think, so for people who've paid. So it's a good time, then you get to ride back. And we encourage kiddos to come in pajamas, because that's kind of fun too, unless it's just too cold, and then obviously coats are allowed, of course. So that's a big one for us, and that goes through up until Christmas. In fact, I think they may even go maybe like the day after Christmas. So those are on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. They do fill up. So if you're interested, do take a look at that. We do have a holiday community event coming up. So we've got the Winter Wonderland, which is our outdoor event at Napster Park. It's on Saturday and it's from 5 to 7. It'll kick off the lighting of the Christmas tree, the city's Christmas tree, and the mayor or someone will be there to make turn the lights on. We'll have entertainment on the stage. We've got 3 different concert vocalists who will be singing. Again, you can come make your own s'mores. We've got cookies, we've got letters to Santa. Santa will be there, and just a lot of fun and a lot of enjoyment there, and just a great way to kick off the holiday season. So I do hope to see a bunch of you there. We've got our City Crew Kids Clubs, and if you're not familiar with City Crew, anybody who's got kiddos who are ages 2 to 12, it's our free kids club. It's an exclusive program, so once you sign up, we have an event each month that's exclusive to the City Crew kids. And so the one that we have coming up on December 16th is Breakfast with the Grinch. So that one's gonna be a lot of fun. We've got the Grinch pancakes and the Cindy Lou's Who hash and the Grinch punch and, Christmas ornament making and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a lot of fun, but you do have to sign up to be a City Crew member. It is free though. And it's time to sign up or re-sign up for 2024. So we're in the final stages of preparing all of our new programs. Those will be on our website soon, probably the middle of January or middle of December. And it's time to sign up for the new 2024 City Crew. The other thing we've got going on is Miracle League. We are still taking signups for Miracle League Bowling. That'll start in January. The Miracle League program's been huge. I saw that there's still a flyer back there on if you want to be involved with the Miracle League. So you can be a buddy with one of the kids and be a volunteer to help out. That's back there if you want to see it. And then last but not least, hot off the press, the new Evolve activity guides, which of course includes City Arts, the library, and Wichita Park. So these are out. I put a whole bunch of them on the back table there. And then also next to them, underneath the Miracle League Buddy flyer, are the ones for fall. Because there's still a lot of programs still going on, like those ones I mentioned. If you're interested and want to know when they are, where they are, what the cost is, that's over there. So pick up one of those too, and so you can see what we've got going on. So that's just programs. So, I mean, obviously, maintenance and trees. I mean, they're getting all the lights put up in the parks and getting all of the new Christmas lights put up and stuff. So it's just nonstop. We love it. So, any questions? I know I talked fast. That was a lot.
Barbara, I'm gonna say, we always appreciate Reggie, but you were a fantastic alternative, so thank you.
I appreciate that. Let the big guy know.
The recommended action is to receive and to file all staff reports. Is there a motion? So, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion shall carry unanimously, and we will roll into new business. I will turn it over to Philip.
Hey everyone, I'm Philip Ziegenberg with the Planning Department. We got 3 items for you tonight. The first one is the community unit plan amendment for DP 327, which is located on the northeast corner of 29th and Mays. It's the community unit plan that Sam's Club is in. This is specifically related to parcel 8, which is the parcel just north of IHOP, between IHOP and the berm. It's one of the last parcels of the community unit plan to look to be developed. The request is twofold. Number one, they're looking to amend architectural controls. We talked about this earlier this year. Parcel 5, which is the one south of Duncan, between Duncan and Sam's Gas, recently amended those architectural controls to allow a different type of building material, which is EFIS, which is kind of a faux stucco. And allow for two or more different types of flexible block or EFIS or something to be used when there's a building about 100 feet long or larger. They're looking to match that architecture, be added to that list of being able to use that type of materials. And the two of those types of materials, so not adding anything new or changing anything. That I just want to be able to do that Proposal 5 was able to do. And then the larger one for discussion tonight is General Provision 17 of the Community Unit Plan. Has a restriction on various uses or functions within 300 feet of residential uses to the north or to the east. And one of those is a drive-through. There's several other things, but that's not germane to this, nor is the staff recommendation to allow any other type of exception. So it would just be for the drive-through. A drive-through restaurant is wanting to locate on that parcel. And of course, they want to have a drive-through. Before I get too much farther, now that we've got this far in, at your tables, I have a handout that's labeled CUP 2336 proposed additional conditions. This was information that was presented to staff and the planning commission about a day before the planning commission meeting that the Fox Ridge HOA and the developer came into agreement on. And so it was presented to the MAPC as all additional information that they could take into consideration based on their deliberation. So it's not part of staff recommendation, but these were additional items that came before the planning commission as well. And I wanted to make sure that you had them, and I'll go over what the final thing was based on planning commission's recommendation towards the end here. But either way, long story short, one of the items on there was that the drive-through couldn't have a speaker. Well, thankfully, we use iPads and pods, and people are out there kind of like Chick-fil-A or Dutch Brothers or something like that. So they're like, cool, we don't need a speaker. So no speaker. Number 2 is having some additional landscaping on the north side of the parcel. Number 3, no signage or no neon signage on the north and the east side of the building. Those would be the closest to any type of residential uses. Number 4, no idling zone and no idling clause for delivery trucks, and that deliveries would be between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Outdoor seating to be on the west side of the building only. The Stockbridge Board has a site plan, and it looks like they're just kind of modeling based on what was kind of submitted, where the outdoor seating is already looking like it would be on the west side. This is page 7. There you go. And then the last one, employee parking on the south side of the building, which is what their site plan kind of showed anyway. So it looks like they're wanting to have the restaurant built like the initial plans kind of modeled after. And again, this was a separate discussion outside of planning commission between the Fox Ridge HOA and the developer prior to the meeting, and then the MAPC discussed these items in addition to the rest of the staff report. You're all fairly familiar with the area. Obviously, there's a mixture of commercial and residential uses based on the larger commercial developments in the area. So there's a Fox Ridge HOA to the north, and then you have some residential uses on the west side of Mace Road as well. The comprehensive plan identifies it for new employment and residential mix, so kind of a combination which kind of matches the area. Staff recommended approval with this, subject conditions in the staff report, but let's talk about what the MAPC did. Overall, there was a fairly welcoming response to additional conditions, especially since they were amicably reached between both parties. There was a discussion about number 4, which is the idling zone and the no deliveries between 7 and 10. I'm sorry, that deliveries can only be between 7 and 10. And really just the problematic nature of enforcing a rule like that when it comes to, well, how do we know if it's truck is idling, or even if it is a delivery for this new restaurant coming in on Parcel A, or what if it's a delivery for IHOP? There's just some problematic things in that with that. And so based on, they actually asked the zoning administrator, like how easy it is to enforce, and he said it was very difficult. So the recommendation from planning commission was to include all of these conditions except for number 4. And not had a unanimous vote 12-0. There was some public comment at the meeting. I believe 7 individuals here tonight who will probably comment about it as well. One thing I want to note about idling, this is a little bit more robust than what's in the CUP. The CUP has a general provision that does not allow any truck anything larger than a pickup to idle overnight within 400 feet of residential uses. That applies to the entire CUP. This would have had no idling throughout the entire day, as well as a limited time of deliveries just for that parcel. So that item number 4 was more robust than what was in the CUP. But there is some level of no idling written into the CUP for the overnight hours for large delivery semi trucks, maybe like what might be the same or something like that. So overall, I will stay for questions you might have for me. Like I said, I think there's some individuals here who would like to provide comment for you as well. Pictures. Oh, yeah. So keep going. Up in the top left-hand corner, I'm standing at IHOP looking north. This is the parcel looking to be developed, and then you have the berm separating it from the Fox Ridge. Next picture to the right, and then looking to the east at Life Church. Next picture down at the bottom is that parcel looking west across Maze Road. This is looking south at IHOP, and the property is to the south of IHOP. And there's one more page. One more. Yeah. What's the name? Oh, you know it. Okay, so that's the general area.
Good. Is there any questions or discussion from the board concerning the zoning case? I mean, currently, is there anyone from the public who has questions or concerns concerning the zoning case?
There's comments.
You would come to the front, state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
My name is James Tidball. I reside at 10211 West Lakes Court, Wichita, Kansas, just to the north of this development area. A couple of things I'd like to point out. No idling is for the overall area, is for overnight idling, for anything bigger than a pickup truck, which really has no bearing on what we talk about with Culver's or the developer. The other things that are in here that go along with the building is to make sure that in the future, should something else come along, that they're not going to go in and change it without having to come back and say, we want to change it. We want to put seating on the north side. We want to put seating on the east side. We want to have parking over here, over there, whatever. So even the external speaker, if somebody wants to put a speaker out there, we're going to have to hear about it. That's why we want to keep this in there. And Culver's has been more than willing to work with us and accommodate what we were requesting, and they will continue to enforce the no idling and the deliveries. They're not going to take deliveries. Just not going to do it. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Very good. We'll bring it back to the board. So we have a recommendation for approval. No, my understanding, so the approval that we're looking at is not taking into consideration the amendments that were associated. Is that correct?
You could include those in your recommendation. These were not part of staff recommendation. The planning commission included 5 out of the 6 of them in their recommendation to city council above and beyond the staff recommendation. Because the comments came in literally the day before, so we were not able to incorporate them into our staff recommendation, but they were discussed and formally 5 of the 6 were formally included in the MAPC recommendation to add to the recommendation for approval, but subject to staff recommendation in addition to items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
So I guess my question to the board, would the recommended action then be to accept the approval of staff with the carryover recommendations as noted with the exclusion of number 4? So all those in favor of the approved action with the noted amendments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Outstanding, motion shall carry unanimous. I may real quick. Yes, sir.
I would just like to thank the Fox Ridge HOA as well as representatives from Culver working together on this. I served on the District 5 Advisory Board when this first CUP came together. And I remember then it was very contentious, it was very challenging, and a lot of give and take was on both sides. It is a very popular corner. We've seen a lot of development. But this is the way it's supposed to work, having public and private work together and figure this out. And, you know, it's good to see. So I want to thank both parties for that. It still has to come to the council, and the protest period is open now. I think we're hoping to get it to the council by January 2nd. At the latest.
Well, since both of these parties agreed if there is no protest, then the MAPC decision would be, it would not have to go to council.
That's true.
Since
There
it's
is
just
no
an
vote.
amendment and tied to its own change.
Yeah.
Since these recommendations are the same, it would not necessarily have to come to council.
So we could get quicker.
Once the protest period is over, we'll know.
When's protest period over?
It started last Friday, so it'll end by 5 p.m. on the 14th.
Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed. All right, thank you. Appreciate you guys being here.
Right, and I thank you for those comments as well. So we appreciate what you.
And free burgers for everyone. Can you open?
Come see me at opening, I'll be there.
Well, it'll be the first Culver's in Wichita, right?
Right.
Even better. District 5 gets before East Side.
Yes.
You hear that tunnel? Put that in the minutes for
This is just about me.
her.
Thank you, absolutely, thank you, sir. Next, we will go to our second zoning case. Philip, I see you standing there, so I presume that you will, be playing the role of Brad for this one then?
I am.
Very well, take it away,
That
sir.
is playing the role for all of us at District 1. So,
Outstanding.
Yep. Again, good evening. This is a zone change request located near 2013 Woodchuck. Is the Good Shepherd, Episcopal Church. Well, Good Shepherd Church, the white one. Where we normally go. It is their property, but it only affects a portion of the western portion of their property that has no development. It's just a piece of grass that they are mowing right now. The intention, my understanding is the intention is to do a lot split and actually sell it off for the commercial development, but they're looking to rezone it from SF5 single family to limited commercial for commercial retail use. And this obviously comes with, different development standards for, setbacks and lot sizes and things like that. That's a discussion in the staff report. This is along 21st Street, which is a very big commercial corridor. You have, I just lost the name, the establishment to the west, but the go-karts and the,
All-Star
All-Star, thank you. To the west, the predominant zoning around the area is mostly single family, but you have two large church to the north, you have churches to the east, and then you have some single family residential to the south. It is important to note by going to limited commercial, they will need to abide by all screening standards for a screening fence along the south property, and actually even if it does a lot split, the east property line, which would be shared with the church. In addition to the landscape code, which requires a landscape buffer with trees planted along those property lines, as well as the landscape street yard along 21st Street if there's a new parking lot built. So they will have to come up to the full compliance for going commercial for this portion of the property. This was also heard at planning commission last week under recommendation for approval with a 12-0 vote. We did hear the case. There was an individual in the public who wanted to hear it, but when it came to public comment, they did not provide any public comment, so they might have wanted to just know a little bit more about the case at that time. So I don't believe we actually heard any opposing public comment on this one as well. And the future growth map identifies a place as appropriate for commercial zoning or commercial uses. And if you want to say possible, yeah, you're fine. There we go. So pictures, this is looking south into the subject side from 21st Street. There's some trees on it right now. This is on the property looking north towards 21st Street. The church on the right side of the building is the church that currently owns the property. This is looking west towards All-Star Sports. More here. This is along 21st Street looking north at Ridge Point Church across the street. This is looking east, and again, that's the church that currently owns the property. And then looking northeast away from the side of the larger church property. And I can stand for any questions.
Good. Are there any questions from the board concerning the zoning case? Is there anyone from the public who has any questions or thoughts or concerns concerning the zoning case? Very good. Bring it back to the board. The recommended action is to approve this particular zoning case. Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Outstanding. With one abstention. Very good. We will move along to our last zoning case of the evening. Philip, you are the man of the hour.
Zone 2365, this is on the planning commission, it will on December 14th, so we don't have any feedback from them at this time. But is located on the east side of North Tyler, close to the 29th Street from 1937. It is a former church building. My understanding is recently put up for auction. And the applicant is looking to rezone it from single family to general office with the intended use of a funeral home. It's important to note that funeral homes in the GO district are not allowed to have crematoriums. So they cannot do any on-site burning. They can do embalming and the other practices that a funeral home would do, but it was a very clear point that crematoriums are not allowed in GO. General office is supposed to be kind of a buffer zone that is appropriate near residential uses. Just because they typically have compatible hours of operation. When you think of typical office hours being 8 to 5, they're not typically having late or night hours or types of activities that are less compatible with residential uses. When it comes to how this site was used in the past, you obviously have day-to-day functions that aren't very arduous, and every so often there'd be once a week there'd be a church service, so we had a crowd of people show up, and then something similar with the funeral home could be similar, where you have some very mundane day-to-day operations, not a lot of usage, and then there might be a viewing every so often with, and they could be in the evening. They don't necessarily have to have their hours like an office does, but either way, probably fairly similar type of use of the site as the church currently has or currently did before. There are compatibility standards if there was any new construction of buildings when it comes to setbacks and how far away they would have to be from property lines. It is a large property, it's about 9.5 acres. I don't know if they have any intentions of any additional buildings. The church is closest to Tyler, and then there's a lot of the property that extended back towards the residential properties that are behind it. It does, if not already, would have to come up to screening standards with the fence around the property line. With the amount of landscaping on there, they're likely not going to have to plant anything new. This landscaping can be used to meet the requirement of GO, would now require them to have. The subject property has access to North Tyler. There's no access behind into the neighborhood behind them. The comprehensive plan identifies it for new residential. But that category being new residential also says that pockets of major institutional commercial uses could be developed depending on market driven factors. So it doesn't necessarily pigeonhole to just residential. It understands that there could be, something along an arterial road like Tyler that might be something different than residential. All the surrounding properties are in single family residential. Property to the west across North Tyler is the east side of the Fox Ridge neighborhood with single family homes. You have large lot single family homes to the north. You have typical suburban sized lots of single family homes to the east. And then also single family, a larger lot single family development to the south. Again, this has not gone to planning commission, but our planning staff is recommending approval. Also on your table, there's a 2-page document. There's 2 different public comments that we did receive via email for this case. For your consideration, I'm not necessarily aware of anything tonight, because you're not here. This not being my case. I haven't interacted with folks who's passing along information that I was given. So with that, I can stand for any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions from the board concerning the zoning case?
Philip, this is for the entire almost 10 acres, correct?
Correct.
So in the future, they could possibly lock split this, and sell some off.
Correct, yes. And GO does allow for residential uses, it allows for other uses than just offices. So it is an zoning of it, but, yeah, this is just, it is the whole 9.5 acres, but it is one. There are technically two parcels on it right now, there's kind of an internal parcel. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's all under the same ownership.
I do have a. Will there be or has there been some type of traffic study conducted to look at in terms of, will there be congestion in terms of like with the funeral processions and things of that nature, how that'll block off, is that taken into consideration of this process?
No, typically because they're just occasional things and it's pretty understood, you know, say like Ridgepoint on 21st Street, we're at a funeral, like they would, you know, probably cause some immediate congestion as the procession moves on, but that would be typical for any church that might hold a funeral as well as the funeral homes. So, you know, we didn't take it into consideration, but it could possibly cost them depending on when the funeral is and how frequent they are.
Are there any other questions from the board? Is there anyone from the public who has a question, comment, or concern concerning the zoning case?
Yes, sir.
Please rise to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Name's Tidball, I 10-11 West Westlake Court, Wichita, Kansas, 67205. And my concern is traffic, and thank you very much for bringing that up. This is a 2-lane road with high schools right there. And high school kids have enough trouble driving, okay? We don't need to add to it, and I think this is gonna be a problem, especially in that area. That's a very, very busy intersection, 2-lane road. Please do a traffic study. Please recommend a traffic study. I know when we were discussing Sam's Club coming in, they did a traffic study on Maze Road. With Maze Road closed north, on the north side of, or the south side of Maze. So there was hardly any traffic going through there. They were all taking different routes. Please do a good traffic study on this to make sure. And Philip, did I understand you correctly that there is no crematorium allowed?
Correct.
Okay, on GO, right?
In GL, correct.
I wanted to clarify. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We will bring the discussion back to the board. The current recommended action is to approve for staff. Is there any further discussion?
Philip, if I may, on the cover sheet here, the parcel on the far north end where it's got the compass point now, we just recently changed that to TF3, correct?
Mhm.
Are you aware of either of the other parcels south of that are under any kind of change or?
We don't have any current applications on any of the parcels on this part of Tyler.
Because all of those parcels have been SF5, correct?
Correct. And all the one just recently to the north are still SF5.
So to Mr. Tidwell's point, it might be time with all of this continuing to get more developed. Traffic study might be warranted. So I can certainly talk to Public Works about that as well. It is 3-lane up to, sorry, what is that street name?
West Lakes.
West Lakes Parkway? I believe they're the center turn lane, right?
There's medians when the turn isn't present.
Right. Okay, but yeah, good point, I'll ask Public Works about it.
Thank you. In the awareness of the situation and the information at hand, is there momentum by this body to add an amendment to the approval to put a traffic study along with our recommendation? Very good. So I would say then that we are looking at the acceptance of the staff recommendation with the amendment of a traffic study to be included with our acceptance of the recommendation. Is there a motion to accept that? Stated.
You making a motion?
Yes, I can. Yes, I will. So I will make the.
It's a great motion. Just ask for a second.
So I will make the motion that we accept staff recommendation along with adding the amendment to include a traffic study. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, the same sign. Unanimous, okay, very good, then that motion shall carry unanimous. Philip, you were phenomenal, thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Merry Christmas.
Next, we will hear about the Country Acres Dog Park. Tim, Principal Planner and Landscape Architect, Wichita Public Works and Utilities, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you all for having me. This is my second time here. We're here to talk about the Country Acres Dog Park. Just wanted to provide you all an update on where we are. But yeah, so as I mentioned, we had an open house in October and that followed with the DAB presentation. So this is an update on that project or on this project. A little bit of background in case you weren't there. This location has been talked about for a while for having a dog park. We've done studies to identify exactly where dog parks make sense. One of them that was identified was Harrison Park. That study we've been hearing routinely from loads and loads of people about dog parks or working on other dog parks in different districts. Dog parks are a hot topic and something that community routinely heard about. Some questions that we've received are kind of why Country Acres. There's other parks in the area. Why Country Acres? Well, one, it's located on the west side of town, so that puts it up there just to begin with. About having a dog park, since there's not another dog park on the west side of town. As Councilmember Fry had noted last time that District 5 has the most dog license in the city. So kind of makes sense. If you don't have a dog park, you probably need a dog park if you have the most licenses. And some people don't even get dog license, so it could be even more than that. So it's really important to try to provide for those people. A lot of folks live in multifamily residences. They don't have places to go take their dogs. It's important to provide those areas in a safe spot for those. Sometimes you'll see, and it kind of grinds my gears a little bit, but you're supposed to have your dog on a leash when you're out in parks. Providing a dog park is a great place because it's a safe place to have a dog out and take them off their leash. You don't have to worry about dog fights, kids getting bit, things like that. It's a more controlled environment and it's safer for everyone. Because generally people just go ahead and let their dog out and it starts to create issues that way. So providing a safe place for dogs and goers, that's really important. Public safety. One thing that makes this park really great is the existing topography and the shade that exists out there. As I mentioned, one of the other dog parks that we're working on right now is Meridian Dog Park, K9 Brewster Dog Park, which is in District 6. That was doesn't really have any shade. It lacks shade, and I know we're in December, but come June and July, really, that shade is really important to have, especially for dogs. And a lot of people like to spend a bit of time out there at the dog park, so important to have a nice shade and a comfortable atmosphere for everyone. The poor conditions of the existing amenities on the site, they need to be taken out. They're not great. They weren't built to city standards. They weren't part of the city. They were when the property was donated to the city. We obtained those assets. One of them was a swimming pool, as many of you know, that was not done well, leaked a lot. Saw attendance go down there. One reason why that the swimming pool was taken out. These existing amenities, the different basketball court and tennis courts there, they're not in great condition. They need to go anyways. This makes a perfect spot for a dog park. And as I mentioned earlier, it's close to multifamily residents. Again, that's a big thing that we're seeing, is trying to make sure that we're providing equitable space and amenities to everyone across the city. And it's really close to Central and Ridge. It's a lot easier to get, you have those arterial streets when you're not weaving and going through neighborhoods to get to a dog park. That makes it, one, a lot safer for people walking around the neighborhood. And secondly, it makes it easier to find. So you don't have people just randomly driving around your neighborhood that aren't necessarily supposed to, just fooling around in people's neighborhoods. It's nice to have it nice, close to intersections and things like that, easy to get to.
So for a lot of those reasons and all those reasons, that's why Country Acres is a pretty great spot, and we feel it's the right spot and for this dog park. A little background on funding. I just wanted to provide that as an update, or kind of give everyone a basis of kind of what we're working with here. So $750,000 and $50,000 for art. So that $50,000 for art. So that's one of the things that I want to get feedback on tonight is thoughts on art, keywords. We're putting out an RFP or RFQ to the artists. It's nice to know kind of like from the community, like words that you want like the artists to think about. So like on previous RFQs that we put out to artists, we've used the words like whimsical or like imaginative, like a bunch of different like adjectives that help kind of get them rolling, because if they're just kind of shooting in the dark, it's kind of hard for them to, you know, exactly dial in, or, you know, maybe my style isn't going to work here. So I'd like to get some of that feedback from you all. And I'm presenting on the final concept. So just to clarify, this is not the final design. So kind of how this works is we go through concept phase, and then eventually we'll get into kind of like you see in the movie, like a giant set of blueprints, essentially, the construction documents, and that's what the contractors will build off of. This right now, we're just in a concept design, so that makes it easier to move things around. Fences need to move, things need to get reorganized. It's easier to do that now rather than later. So that's what I'll be presenting on today. And so the design is kind of ongoing, but the feedback today will help us make sure that we're staying in the right direction, make sure that we're on track without diving too fully deep into it. Just to kind of help you place it, you can see in the map here, you see this lower left-hand one, where the other dog parks are. You can see that there is a desert, basically a dog park desert, over here on the west side of town. You can see the project site there. And you can see Ridge Central there. We did acquire some land. Originally there was multifamily on that parcel. We thought it was a great idea to go ahead and expand some of the land. It's already, it's not a giant dog park, but adding as much square footage as we can to it will definitely help, especially if we can use that for parking. It makes a good sense instead of trying to go in there and bulldoze over trees and things like that. It's flat, nice piece of land, great for a parking lot. You can see there that those are existing tennis and basketball courts that we removed. You can see here in some of the photos, there's quite a bit of topography in here, and there are trees. We had to take some of those out. As someone mentioned earlier, there are dying trees throughout the city. Those do need to be taken care of. So you may see a tree gone, and that's because it's probably dead or dying. So it's important to get those out while we can. This was the original concept back in October that we presented. You can see having 3 different dog park areas. That's generally kind of what we like to do, because you can rotate them. The little dogs come in, they kind of tear it up. And then if you've ever had a big dog, you know they like to tear up most yards. So we like to put in the little dogs first, then the big dogs, and then we have a year to restore the site. So that's why we have 3 dog pens, 1 to rest, the other 2 are open and rotates through. Having a parking lot on the south side of the park we felt was very important, because you have less cars driving through the neighborhood. It's also easy to get to, pretty straightforward. You can see the other parking lot, you know when you're getting close to the dog park. And because you'll be able to see the fences and everything as you're driving through. Makes sense to have nice and easy to get to. We did have a berm, and still plan to have a berm over there on the north side between those houses and the dog park, trying as best as we can to try and create a little bit of separation as we can through there. No one really wants to have another dog just right on the other side of the fence, so a little breathing room would be probably go a long way. So this is an updated concept, probably hard to see. I do have some closer areas so we can talk about it a little bit more. We can see this starting to get a little bit more refined. Instead of kind of big bubbles, we're showing actual fence lines where we're planning on putting pathways. We're going to have to go through and refine this a little bit, but this is the final concept to move forward with. So any feedback here would definitely help. but it will tweak a little bit as we get into further details. You can see the parking lot down there on the south side, utilizing that land that we acquired. Some good land, we can go ahead and keep as many existing trees as we possibly can. You can see we plan to do that with a lot of those trees that are not filled in. You see the outline. So keeping as much of those is very important. Having drinking fountains in there for everyone to make sure it's a nice place, a dog wash station, what we have planned for. No one likes putting a muddy dog in their car, so trying as best to make sure that they get cleaned off because dogs do get messy. Shelters out there trying to help protect the shade, create a nice environment. One of the things that we found is that users and other dog parks that were making friends with other people that go to the dog park, and then they end up meeting and hanging out, and then you have like a Facebook group where everyone goes together and stuff. So it's kind of nice to have a place to congregate, talk about your dogs. When I was presenting on a presentation for Meridian or Canine Research Dog Park, it was amazing how many people in the open house knew each other, but they didn't know like the owners' names. They just knew you're like, I don't know, like your Spot's parent, and they don't know the people's names just because they know each other by their dog. So having those places are really important, helps provide a sense of community. And we feel that's one thing that this site has lost with losing the pool. It's kind of a big thing. That was a place for the community, the neighborhood to go to. We feel that this is another way to provide that, a place for the community to gather, the neighborhood to gather, and create those social ties together. There's not, the courts aren't really in great shape. It's really important to kind of have those pieces that tie fabric together of the different communities. So some of the amenities out here, having a kiosk, got to share kind of what the rules are for the park. Got to make sure that people are informed. One of the things that we require, and sometimes it's not followed, but we try to do our best to enforce, is that you need to have your dog spayed and neutered when they come to the dog park. Making sure that we have signage up is really important. Make sure people are following rules, make sure this is a safe dog park. One thing to note here is that we have multiple entrances for different maintenance. That makes it a lot easier for us to come in and mow and get out easier. That's one thing that we've learning from other dog parks, is trying to make sure that's easy to maintain for one, less time that we're out there in the parks trying to make it sure that you don't have mowers going around all the time. So trying to make sure that this is one, good for us for maintaining, makes it easy to maintain, also makes it easy to use. Let's see. So just zooming in just a little bit, trying to help kind of provide a little bit more. I won't explain all of these things, so you guys can kind of look at the different call outs. Different benches, we've been hearing people just like sitting down, just watching their dog have fun. It's pretty simple to put in benches and it goes a long way. So trying to make sure that we can put in a lot of those, we feel is a good bang for a buck. Let's see. So yeah, 18 stalls for the parking. I feel like that's a pretty great number to go with. That also prevents is a good area because we're not just going into the dog park as much, as much as we feel like we don't need to go that far into it. Again, we start messing with trees, we start making it a little bit more complicated, and it's just a sea asphalt, and then we have to put in multiple curb cuts to get, the parking to work. So we're trying to make this as efficient as we can without trying to just destroy the whole park. So trying to strike that balance. So that's one thing I like to hear from you all. If you feel this is great, a good balance, we feel it is, but want to make sure that we're hearing you all. Let's see. Again, one thing that we're planning on doing is installing trees on the south end, trying to create a little bit of buffer between the residential on the south side, hoping to kind of and say, hey, this is parkland. You can't just come use the park just for your activities for the residential area. Try to make sure this is a park. We do have hours. We do have those things. You can't just park your car here. This is a park. Great, so some of the timeline, I did mention that we have a artist. We are working on getting that RFP out, but I want to make sure I get all of your feedback before we go out there. I don't want to, we don't want to put in a piece of art that you feel didn't hit the mark. So trying to get your feedback now before we put that out. And we'll be working on the design and then issue that construction document out for bid. We think it'll go pretty quickly. Most of this is fencing. The biggest thing that'll probably be a lead time, maybe the shelters that we have. Otherwise, most of the things are pretty readily available. Parking lots are pretty straightforward. We don't imagine tearing up the whole park very much, so. Again, some of my questions, thoughts, concerns. What would you like for the future arts to think about, as I kind of already mentioned, and then what do you want us to keep in mind while designing? Again, this is the final concept that I'm asking for your approval today. But if you have things you want us to, like, yeah, we like it, we approve it, but you know, really, you think you should think about this, or XYZ thing is something I really want to hit on. So I'd like to get your feedback. And I am going to the Country Acres Neighborhood Association. And I guess that'd be next Tuesday on the 12th. So I need to present there and get feedback from them. So if you have anything you'd like for me to ask them, ask that neighborhood association, please let me know. And so I'll stand for any questions and love your comments.
Artificial turf sometimes is good for pets. Was that in consideration in this project?
No, we haven't. That doesn't mean we haven't. That's one issue with that. Like, so there's pros and cons, right? It's more expensive. It's about $17 a square foot. So it starts to add cost to it. So if we find ourselves when we get along, we have a cost estimate and we feel we have more funding, maybe we may look at that. But that's not something that we're considering right now, but something we could consider.
On the line item for 50,000 for art, can you detail what that means exactly?
Sure. Yeah, so the art, basically what we have to do and what that money is used for is to pay the artists for, and the way that we're gonna be doing it is we pay the artists for design. Then they come up with drawing that are included in the contract, in the package that we bid out. The contractor the artist will then sign, whoever is the contractor to build it, they will then hire the artist to create the piece. So it'll be the design of it and the creation of it.
Yeah, sorry, if I wasn't clear. Does that mean a mural? Does that mean sculpture? Or is that open?
That's open. I love if you are like mural, we want mural, please let me know. If you think a statue makes sense, or you know, maybe it's broken up, maybe it's one giant, you know, feature, or maybe it's something in the paving, maybe it's like a tile mosaic in a paving. It could be a large number of things that really it's kind of whatever we feel is the best thing.
Like memoriams or plaques, like for canines killed in the line of duty, like Canine Bane just recently.
Yes, that is something that we can consider, that if that's all what you feel is important, then that's something that we can do, we can look at, sure.
I think it's more, the art's more for the people, and are they really gonna be there looking at the art?
So if I
The
may.
dogs don't care.
So if I may, when the
They're like,
council
we're like-
approved, this was several years ago, the council approved a percent for art. And it's generically defined as art/design. So that we want all of our infrastructure to have a good look to it, right? We don't want anything to be the same, cookie cutter, right? So some of it is art elements like murals or statues or whatever. Sometimes it's just innovative or pleasing design for the public that's there as well. So there's a percentage that is dedicated for above ground infrastructure. We're not gonna put art into sewers or you know, water pipes, right? But of those above ground structures, we wanna have a pleasing design, artistic element to it. So that's why that number it's a percentage of. And the design council is another body that weighs in on those infrastructure projects that should have maybe a greater percentage dedicated to it. This one's fell in line with the percent that we have dedicated. But it could mean all of these things, right? It could be the benches that maybe they have a pet design to them. There are off-the-shelf stuff that you can buy that have animal themes, or you can hire an artist to do something very specific. So that's really kind of what we're thinking about here.
What's the process by which you select? Is there one already identified, or is it open? Is there gonna be an RFP?
Yeah, there'll be an RFQ that will be put out, and one thing that I would like to see and with the emerging artists to work on this project. A lot of times we have like really big projects, and sometimes it's hard for artists to get their foot in the door, because if I've never, if I have like 2 pieces that I've built, but I'm competing against someone that has like 10 built and they're all across the country, it's a little bit easier for people to gravitate towards the, oh, well, I want the person that's done the big, greatest thing. So keeping it local, I feel is great, because it's kind of a good cost in there to get them in. And we may, invest in them now, and then we see them doing great things down the road. So that's something that I personally would like to do. But we will issue that out. They will submit. We have a project team that will, it will be, probably art manager will be one. I'll be another one. We'll have, a few other people from city staff, and probably have the, Hoffman is doing the design, so they'll probably be on it. But, we're happy to take more people that want to join or volunteer to be, come in and be a part of that. So it's not closed door. So if you want to volunteer and be part of that, I mean, more than happy to have you on.
So of the dog parks that we have right now, he mentioned Canine Rooster. That's the Meridian Dog Park over at 21st and Meridian. It was renamed and dedicated for a canine officer that died. Someone mentioned Canine Bane. That is a Sedgwick County Sheriff canine animal, not a city of Wichita one. And then just that was inside. Our other dog parks do not have any kind of theme or honorary. Harrison Dog Park is our newest one. It's got quite a bit of what do you call those? Playground equipment for dogs.
Yeah.
There's
Agility.
agility things, right? One of the things we've talked, it's been suggested is maybe a theme of tribute to service dogs. Right, we mentioned canine rescue, but there's also bomb sniffing dogs, there's arson dogs, there's seeing eye dogs. Elaine's on my appointment to the Animal Services Control Board. There's probably other service dogs I'm not even mentioning right now. But maybe that could be a theme of some sort. Or is there a neighborhood theme? It is Country Acres, it's been well-established neighborhood for a very long time. That's the kind of thing we're looking for. Are there particular words or themes or ideas that could be directed for an artist? So I did have a question about the design. The first slide that you showed that had more detail, that one.
Yeah.
That northern edge where the color differentiation is.
Yeah.
That's the berm.
Mhm.
So is there a fence on the northwest side?
So there,
Where's the fence?
In between the light colored green and the dark colored green, there is a fence, right? There will be a fence right there.
Okay.
And then there won't be anything until
Because that's the neighbor's property.
Yes, yeah, and I know last time that there was some concerns, I think, about a homeless coming in the area. There is, I think there may be one incident in the last year in District 5 for homeless cleanup on city property, on parks. There's legal dumping and things like that. There's an online tracker that the Park and Recreation has, and it's their work order list, and you can go on there and see a map where everything, all the homeless cleanups are, and everything. The West Side Pound hardly has it. So that's mostly happens in the urban areas where we're seeing that mostly. There are some in Swanson had a few. I think Buffalo may have had one in the last year or so, but we haven't really seen that much in this area.
I just thought I'd heard you mention berm earlier.
Yes, we had thought about berms, but I think taking into consideration that probably may not be a great one. Having trees on it becomes a little bit harder to see. So we're thinking that trees there is a good way to kind of provide that buffer without making it a little bit harder to get in there. Plus a little bit harder to mow if it's too high of a berm. And is the water draining off into their property, along their fence line and stuff like that. So.
Okay.
On the berm, there's a lot of natural grasses that is fairly low, so it wouldn't mind the homeless. I'd like to see that rather than grass.
Right.
The other thing, and I haven't been to any other dog parks, so I don't know. I had a child with autism and, there's not a lot of things around town that has multi-sensory. So I don't know if it's statue or something, because my kids want to put their hands on everything. And so I don't know if that's a problem.
I'd also like to second that comment on nature play within the dog park. More so something immersive, something where people aren't just gonna look at it or walk by it and think, oh, very cool. You know, I like the idea of benches or something we can touch, feel, not smell, taste, but you understand what I'm saying, is a little bit more, just more immersive, and interactive to encourage not only just dog play, because I would bring my dog and my kids, so maybe like a duel.
Like if there's agility stuff for the dog to do, that,
Agility for my.
that your kids could like go over
Yeah.
just a little bridge thing with their dog, you know? I see it more as like playground equipment that's, you know, scaled down to size that small kids and dogs play on.
Yeah.
So, jump on this toadstool thing with your dog, and so your dog can get up there, you get up there with the dog, I don't know.
Well, I'll take this time to plug that we are doing a interpretive playground. We have a grant at Croc Wetlands that we'll be working on, so there's gonna be something like that in District 5 here soon, so.
What was the location?
That will be at Croc Wetlands,
Yes.
yeah, a playground that will be out there.
Okay.
So, super excited about that project too. But no, I appreciate that, yeah, something like a kinetic sculpture, something that moves or moves in the wind or something, you know, not like a wind chime or anything, but something like that. Press on that, so any keywords, anything else, any other questions, feedback?
I think, personally, I think it's a limit. I'm more excited about like the multiple artist interpretations on what could be. And, you know, I think you provided an open offer for us to join maybe like a team of sorts, because I'd be more interested when you're down to like, here's the final 3 and they all had different variations on art. I just feel like I'd have more, me personally, I'd have more critical feedback at that juncture.
Like emerging artists, it's really hard for new artists to get a foot.
Anything you don't want to see from the art. And sometimes that's as helpful as saying that this is what we want. Just as plain sculpture. That's fair.
Weather is really dependent in this area. Avoiding things like bronze or materials that are gonna cook. Things that you don't want to, yeah, or dogs, yeah, that was kind of where I think on the chart. I think safety and welfare is probably up in mind.
Any other closing thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, recommendations? Any from the audience? Very good. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you next Tuesday as well. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind improving the concept, that would help. If, you know, it's up to the body to decide.
Make a motion to approve the concept.
Second that.
There's been a motion and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. The motion shall carry. Very much.
Thank you. See you next week.
We have rolled on our last item of the evening, the retaliatory eviction ordinance. Take it away, sir.
So if I just give everyone a little heads up on this, we've had a workshop on it. It's been to a couple of DABs, came to council a couple of weeks ago. And a few of us said, you know, this is something that's gonna be enforced citywide. It needs to be heard by all the DABs because there are landlords and tenants throughout Wichita. So that's why it's before you all tonight.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, Board, Councilman-elect, Thanks for having me. My name's Troy Anderson. I'm the Assistant City Manager here from the City of Wichita, and I'm glad this item was last. You got all the fun stuff out of the way. I'm trying to get through this really fast, but at the same time, I'm here to answer your questions. As the councilman indicated, this item was the result of a workshop that came out of a conversation around housing, housing conditions, how we're improving housing across the community. This item was presented to City Council on November 21st, and the recommendation was to take this out to all of that feedback. So with that being said, so the city has historically received reports for retaliation.
One more. There we go. Nope. The other way.
Technology. It would have. Okay. Historically, the city has received complaints that if a tenant files a housing complaint against the landlord, that they are wrongfully evicted, right? And so we already kind of presented on that. This ordinance is modeled after ordinance that the city of Topeka introduced earlier this year. What you'll see is that this is actually governed by state law. Evicting a tenant for filing a complaint for substandard housing conditions is actually protected under state law. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that a tenant who's been evicted can do other than it's a defense for a wrongful eviction, right? So, like I said, earlier this year, when Topeka drafted a similar ordinance, it takes sort of the next step and introduces an administrative process at a local level to evaluate those complaints, perform the housing inspection, and determine whether or not, in the administration's opinion, whether or not there was lawful or unlawful retaliatory eviction. Again, this ordinance is that administrative process. So here's how the process goes, right? If a tenant feels as though they have been wrongfully evicted, that the eviction was out of retaliation, they can lodge a claim with the city. The city then goes through the process of getting the tenant and the landlord together for mediation, assuming both parties agree to the mediation. If the parties don't successfully mediate the claim, then the city's audit will perform an investigation. If the investigation has found that there was no retaliatory eviction, then the case is closed at the administrative level. If the law department finds that there was evidence of retaliatory eviction, then they will set up and they will forward it along to an administrative judge. That's kind of what this slide here kind of walks through. One of the things that we want to point out is the ordinance that's been provided thus far. There is a discrepancy between the screen that you have on here and what was included in the staff report. The penalties and the fines, if a landlord is convicted by that administrative judge for wrongful retaliatory eviction. Originally, in the ordinance that was presented to City Council, the fines were a lot smaller than what you see on the screen in front of you. At the City Council meeting, we clarified that when the ordinance comes back to City Council, these will be the escalating fines associated with a wrongful conviction. So as you can see,
For a first conviction, a landlord would be fined $250, no less than $250 and no more than $1,000. For a second conviction, no less than $500, no more than $1,500, so on and so forth. And that the prevailing party may also seek costs and fees from the case. Again, on both sides, whether it's the landlord or the tenant, either party can seek damages. So the impact, what do we anticipate the impact to the city will be? We think that the financial impact to the city will be minimal. As we have seen these cases present themselves, they're fairly few and far between. However, when they do present themselves, we anticipate mediation costs at about the $750 range. City will pay for those mediation costs. Hopefully they're successful and not having to go to administrative court. At this point, the investigative costs cannot be reliably predicted, but again, we think that the costs will be minimal. We think that these cases are fewer and far between, but we didn't want to bring back an ordinance that at council's request started to address the alternatives to just leaving it up to state law. Recommended the city council place the item on first reading, authorizes signatures. That was the action. That was the recommendation we gave to city council back on first. So with that being said, that concludes my report on this, and I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions. Feedback. We are simply asking for feedback and input on this. No formal action is required. This will come back to city council December 19th. And so again, we're simply here to seek input, feedback, so that we can share that information with the rest of the council when we return this to seek on something.
Are there any costs incurred by the evictee at any point? Do they have to pay any fees or anything for representation, or how does that work?
So if the landlord is found guilty of retaliatory eviction, yes, they are fined penalties. If there are not, no, neither party would have to pay unless they wanted to pay somebody to represent them, right? We approached this from the perspective of trying to find a neutral position, a balanced approach, right? We didn't want the ordinance to be overly burdensome on the landlord. And we also didn't want the ordinance to be overly burdensome on the tenant, right? We get complaints on both sides, right? We get that there might be a substandard housing condition and then find out that the tenant was the cause of it, right? And so we wanted to try, we didn't want to pick sides, right? And so we really tried to find a very cost neutral. It provides an opportunity for a claimant tenant to make the claim and provide sort of an administrative process, right? Without having to pursue judicial action that would incur significant expenses. So that's why we're going to bear the cost of mediation. But again, we don't anticipate that these cases will present themselves very often. So no, to answer your question, we don't anticipate our department to bear a lot of expenses.
Can you talk a little bit about, so if the law department does find probable cause does exist before referral to the judge.
Yep.
It says the request of conciliation and settlement.
Yep.
What's an example of what could possibly a conciliation and settlement be? Would that be between the landlord who wrongfully evicted the tenant? They would provide a settlement to that tenant?
Correct.
Okay, and it would be up to the law department would determine what that settlement might be or look like.
Yes, yeah, I mean, so a lot of this is going to be dependent on the facts of the case, right? And so, yes, if the law department receives a claim and they go through mediation and mediation is unsuccessful, they perform the investigation, they find that there may be evidence that there was a wrongful eviction. At this point in time, you have to imagine the tenant's probably already been evicted. Right. And so maybe it's relocation costs, maybe it's a reimbursement of their deposit. I mean, the laundry list of kind of settlement
That helps. Where I was going with this is it seemed like in the tenant scenario, if you are filing a claim of wrongful eviction, it almost seems like your end is just like a moral victory, like, all right, if the administrative judge decides to fine the landlord $1,000, you're still out of your home, nothing changes that.
Correct. Right. Generally, in these cases, what either party will try to garner is damages, right? So you gotta be able to articulate and evidence damages.
Okay.
So it could be relocation expenses, could be lost rents, could be any number of things, but that would all come out during the administration.
Okay, thank you.
This may be the other side of the coin, but what is Kansas law on unlawful occupancy of a residence?
So you're talking about squatters? Yeah, I'll be honest, I was not prepared to come and talk about squatters laws tonight. I certainly something I can come back to you on, but yes, these are very difficult situations, right? Police, law enforcement, when generally called out to a resident in a case where somebody might claim that there's a squatter, is not sort of judge, jury, and executioner, right? That they're not there to pick sides, right? They're there to evaluate some sort of criminal activity, right? And so oftentimes, unfortunately, those are not easily resolved at an incident, right? They usually have to proceed through the courts and find some sort of remedy through the courts. So I know that's not an easy answer, but it's usually judicial. Yep.
If the eviction is found to be retaliatory, does that take it off the tenant's record? Because one of the things that we see frequently mentioned in a lot of groups is people asking for help finding an apartment because they've got eviction on their record.
So remember, this is an administrative process, so this does not insert itself into the judicial proceedings. So unfortunately, no, that would still show that a tenant was evicted. Now, we're working obviously with council. There's a lot of conversation of, we have an upcoming legislative session. Is there an appetite at the legislative level, at the state level? But those are some great questions.
It's just it is a cause of homelessness. And so as we're addressing homelessness, just a thought.
Yeah, these are sort of parallel processes, right? This is, if a landlord is going through the eviction process, they're going through the judicial process, right? So this is an administrative process. They don't ever cross paths, right? This is someone at an administrative remedy that provides a tenant who may have been evicted with an opportunity to get some sort of damage relief, right? But unfortunately, no, this doesn't intersect with the judicial process.
So does that mean that the tenant gets the settlement on the fines? Where does that, because you have.
That goes to the court, that goes back to the city to recover.
So the tenant doesn't get anything.
The tenant could get damages.
From the mediation.
Correct. Or, so the tenant could get damage, the tenant could get damages at mediation. The tenant could get damages at a recommendation following the inspection. And the judge, the administrative judge, could also impose not only the fine, but some sort of.
The fines come back to the city to help offset the mediation costs, et cetera.
Right.
Any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts from the board? From the public?
If I'm answering her question correctly, the administrative process can't include a removal of, that has to be done through the judicial, okay.
Correct, yeah, that's, if there is an eviction, that comes at the courts.
Yes, gotcha.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is item number 12. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any who would like to stay a little bit longer, you are more than welcome. Your discretion. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Don't forget, breakfast is Saturday morning. And then next month's meeting will be January 3rd. At Water Treatment. I believe that's where JV is gonna have.